Arkansas. You just heard Senator Sanders on the president called him a pathological liar. Now, and you've seen the quotes in the Michael Wolff book as well, but it's not just those questions that have been raised this week. In the past, your colleagues like Senator Corker have questioned the president's stability. Lindsey Graham has called him a kook, and some have suggested that behind closed doors, those sentiments are shared by a lot of Senate Republicans. Is that true?
George, first off, thanks for having me on. You know, it's a very common occurrence in Washington to have these tell-all books hit with big effect. In fact, you wrote one about the Clinton administration. The difference is your book was accurate. This is a book by a New York gossip columnist who's been known to fabricate stories, who says in his own preface that looseness with the truth is an elemental thread of the book. I can tell you this. The media made similar claims about Ronald Reagan and George Bush. What they all have in common is they're Republican presidents. And when I've worked with the president and the people around him and Republican senators, he's been an active, engaged, and effective leader on issues like repealing the individual mandate of Obamacare, cutting taxes for working people, getting immigration under control, leading the fight against ISIS, and turning this economy around.
And you worked with the president this week on immigration. You just heard Senator Sanders talk about the Democrats' demands on DACA and the border wall. They're not going to go along with this border wall. The president says that's a bottom line demand of his. Is there a way to solve this problem?
I hope so, George. The president has said all along that while President Obama acted unlawfully by giving legal status without an act of Congress, that he wants to solve this problem with a compromise piece of legislation. We've been working on it now for 4 months. In addition to having some funding for the border wall and border security, we're also going to have to take steps to stop unskilled and low-skilled immigration coming into this country, like ending chain migration and ending the diversity lottery. One of the unheralded accomplishments of the first year of the Trump administration that gets overlooked, you know, with the growing stock market, for instance, is that wages for people who work with their hands and work on their feet, the kind of jobs where you have to take a shower after you get off work, not before you go to work, have increased at their fastest pace yet. There's a reason for that. It's not just the growing economy, but it's also that this administration is getting unskilled and low-skilled immigration under control. We need to continue on those efforts while also finding a reasonable compromise for those people who are brought here as young children and young adults through no fault of their own.
But Senator,
I hope the Democrats will come off their unreasonable negotiating position and be willing to compromise.
But you saw their response this week. It wasn't just Senator Sanders on the program just now. Senator Dick Durbin, number 2 Democrat in the Senate, his reaction to this request for $18 billion for the border wall, for the other priorities you expressed right there, is basically saying it's a non-starter, not even close to a compromise at this point, are we?
Well, George, as you rightly said, those are Democratic demands, not as they're often portrayed that the Republicans only make demands, whereas Democrats negotiate. And Senator Durbin's DREAM Act would cost $26 billion, according to the Congressional Budget Office. So Senator Durbin should reconsider who's making unreasonable, costly demands if he's criticizing the president for requesting $18 billion to secure our southern border that creates such a huge magnet for illegal immigration and crime and drugs.
We can have a government shutdown at the end of January?
I don't expect to have one. I certainly don't want to have one. But if the Democrats want to shut down the government because they can't get amnesty for illegal immigrants, then they're going to have to defend those actions to the American people. They didn't do that last month, and I suspect they didn't do it because they know that amnesty for illegal immigrants without any real reform is not popular and that it would be unhelpful to their cause.
Let me ask you about North Korea. You saw that president's tweet this week on the nuclear button. Ambassador Haley said that shouldn't be a concern. It shows the president is forthright and strong, and the North Koreans are getting that message. Are you hopeful about these talks between the North Koreans and the South Koreans this week?
George, my understanding is those talks on Tuesday are primarily about the upcoming South Korean Olympics. I don't know if they'll go beyond that. We'll see what the South Koreans have to say when those talks are over. But President Trump's statement didn't come out of the blue. Kim Jong-un is the one that raised the issue of a nuclear button in his New Year's Day speech. And for 25 years, we've sat around and allowed the Kim regime to make any kind of threats they want against the United States. Donald Trump's statement just reiterated a fundamental point of strategic deterrence going back to the earliest days of the Cold War, which is that we will not allow other countries to hold us at risk with the threat of nuclear attack when our arsenal is the largest and the strongest in the world.
There's been some talk that the president might be asking you soon to join his administration as CIA director. Are you open to that?
Well, George, last time I checked, the CIA has a director, and he's doing a pretty good job, and I'm honored to be serving in the Senate for the people of Arkansas.
Senator Tom Cotton, thanks for your time this morning. We'll be back in just 1 minute with more Roundtable.